The 2019-20 Oklahoma City Thunder have been one of the more interesting storylines in the NBA by exceeding everyone's expectations. Let's face it, most people thought this would be a lottery team, but all that went out the window the moment they started putting together stretches of victories in December. Also, I gotta give Thunder executive Sam Presti a ton of credit for not forcing a rebuild at the trade deadline and allowing the team and the fans an opportunity to see what could actually become of this team. As we all know, sometimes the best moves are the ones not taken. It paid off. The Thunder proved themselves to be a legit and competitive squad that can make serious noise and be a threat to any team in the playoffs. They consistently displayed their character by coming back from deficits to win games, defeating contending teams, and by being one of the most clutch teams in the NBA. The Thunder have also been playing at a 58-win pace over the final 47 games of the season. This team has been one of the feel-good stories and pleasant surprises in the NBA. But I do honestly think that regardless of what happens in the postseason, this team is primed to tear it all down in the offseason to officially start their rebuild with the hopes of building a team that can have prolonged success. In this video, we will break down why Presti is likely to tear this team down in the offseason. We will go over all the assets at Presti's disposal and how he can and will likely use those assets for prolonged success, as well as a realistic 2-year outlook for the Oklahoma City Thunder. But before we jump into it, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe and hit that like button, which will be a big help for me continuing to create content for y'all. Now look, I know in some ways it's a bummer to tear down a team that played so well in the 2019-20 season, but the reality is that Presti doesn't have much of a choice if he plans on rebuilding this team for prolonged excellence. Danilo Gallinari and Andre Robertson will both become unrestricted free agents this offseason, and Gallinari is already 32 years old and will likely be seeking a nice contract. Gallinari simply isn't aligned with the Thunder rebuild. It will be in the best interest of the Thunder to sign and trade Gallinari to another team and get an asset in return. Also, the contracts of Dennis Schroder and Steven Adams will both expire at the end of the 2020-21 season. Again, both players in their prime seeking a nice long-term contract that will restrict the Thunder's financial flexibility. They will get in the way of Presti rebuilding the Thunder properly and may put the team in a position of being stuck in mediocrity. They should and likely will trade both of those guys in the offseason or by the trade deadline in order to get something of value in return. I also do believe there will be suitors seeking Chris Paul's services. He has successfully rehabilitated his value across the league and even at age 35 is one of the best point guards in the NBA. I believe the Thunder can move him to another team for either a young player or more draft capital. In addition to all that, most franchises actually think they have a realistic shot of making the postseason next year. I don't see many teams quote-unquote tanking, at least in the first few months of the season. This is a golden opportunity for the Thunder to take advantage of that by tearing it all down, being less competitive, developing their young guys, and simultaneously solidifying a top 5 draft pick. This will leave the team with only its young players and shai gilgeous-alexander to build around, which is the right thing to do. The Thunder have some intriguing young players who can be a part of the team's future. Players like Lou Dort, who's a tenacious defender, and Hamidou Diallo and Darius Bazley, who have great potential, as well as Terrence Ferguson, who has shown he could be a great defender in this league. And what's great is that none of these players are older than 22 years old, which is perfectly aligned with shai gilgeous-alexander, who himself is only 22 years old and is already a borderline all-star. The Thunder can actually give these young guys legit playing time, which will help their development. Sam Presti will try and build a big three that can compete for championships consistently for at least a decade. As we all know, the 3 best ways to do that are through the draft, trades, and free agency. Now, the Thunder will have loads of cap space in the summer of 2021. But the reality is that big-time names do not normally sign in small markets like Oklahoma City. They will most likely get those stars either through the draft or by trading for a disgruntled all-star. I believe the Thunder already have one of those all-stars that will be a part of the Oklahoma City Thunder's eventual big 3 in shai gilgeous-alexander. I think he has the potential to be at the very least a perennial all-star and top 20 player in this league up until the end of his prime. In just his second season in the NBA, he's already averaged 19.1 points, which led the Thunder, 6 rebounds, and 3.4 assists per game. He is a steady bucket getter and has a beautiful, silky smooth game with incredible footwork, especially when driving towards the basket. And of course, let's not forget his crazy 20-20-10 triple-double against the Wolves earlier in the year as an example of what this kid is capable of. In addition to the tradable assets of Chris Paul, Danilo Gallinari, Dennis Schroder, and Steven Adams, Sam Presti is now armed with 15 first-round draft picks by 2026, of which many are either unprotected or lightly protected, which they received from the Clippers and Rockets in exchange for Paul George and Russell Westbrook. Now, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and Westbrook will all be in their mid-30s by the time the Thunder use those unprotected or lightly protected picks. There's a strong possibility that those draft picks will be high lottery picks, which makes them invaluable assets. Sam Presti will be able to use those draft picks as trade chips to acquire a young superstar, or by simply selecting a promising young prospect with those picks, considering Sam Presti's skills as a talent evaluator and with his ability to extract maximum value in trades. I envision the Thunder tearing it all down and adding as many young prospects as possible over the next 2 seasons while protecting their cap flexibility in order to either absorb unwanted contracts in exchange for more assets or to take a swing on a high-end free agent. It will likely take a while for those Clippers and Rockets draft picks to really start paying off though. The highest draft picks they will likely get in the next 2 seasons will probably be their own. And even though they won't be a playoff team with this type of teardown, they will still remain intriguing and major players when it comes to making moves. I have absolutely no doubts in my mind that Sam Presti will work his magic and utilize this treasure chest of assets to form a core that can compete for years to come. Laying the groundworks to that foundation will start this offseason and will likely continue for a few seasons before all of Presti's seeds begin to sprout. I am very optimistic about the Oklahoma City Thunder's long-term success. What do you guys think? Should the Oklahoma City Thunder tear it all down regardless of how well they performed this season? Or should they fight to remain as competitive as possible year in and year out? Let me know in the comments section. And once again, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. Till the next one, guys, I'm out.